Guys, what's going on? Guys, I've got some shocking news. Before I get into the shocking news, I might do a live stream later today. It'll be a late one, or I'm definitely gonna do one tomorrow. I'm gonna be doing a couple of this week, so I'm probably gonna do Wednesday. I'm definitely doing tomorrow. I might do today as well, later on, but definitely tomorrow. I'll be doing a live. So yeah, I will be doing a couple of live streams. Probably do one on Friday, then one maybe on Saturday. Let's see. I might do a live straight after the fight as well. Let's see how things play out. I might go straight live after the Canelo fight, but we'll see. I'm gonna do a couple of lives this week. But yeah, the shocking news is this. Listen to this. Tom Brown, we offered Canelo 45 million for Charlo, 55 million for Spence. 55 million. I'll say that again. We offered Canelo 45 million for Charlo, 55 million for Spence at 164, or Benavidez at 168. This is what he had to say. Where is it? Props to Eddie Reynoso, the manager of the year, for getting Canelo huge paydays with least risk. He said him take the least risk for the most reward because he had the chance to fight reigning world champion at 160 pounds in Charlo. And he also had a chance to fight an undefeated two-time former 160-pound champion in Benavidez, or he could have fought the reigning welterweight champion. It was a $100 million deal. Then he goes, fortunately now for Matchroom and DAZN, they're able to ride our coattails from our last show with Canelo, which was not on an app. That show had the promotional muscle of both PBC and Showtime behind it, because remember, prior to our show, Canelo was kind of the public's radar for 6 fights in a row on the app. We bought an American world champion plant to him and put our promotional muscle behind it. Look, we did 800,000 buys in today's world. We also had 16,500 people in the MGM Grand, and we did an 18 million gate. Remember, he had sold 700 plus in Arlington, and he did a 9 million gate. The attendance for Alvarez, okay, blah, 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 blah. So he said Errol Spence is the next guy in boxing. He's already a pay-per-view star. He's doing legitimate gates, and look, he has shown his mettle. He was willing to move up more than 2 weight classes to bolster his legacy. It does show how special it really is. Well, there was a quote here where he said that they were willing. What was it? Where's that quote gone? Where's that quote gone? I was reading it a minute ago. Where the hell's it gone? Yeah, I was reading it a minute ago. Basically, it said here that, Alvarez was offered. Yeah, so here, what hasn't been revealed until now is the exact offer from Al Heyman's Premier Boxing Champions and Showtime that Alvarez turned down to accept. DAZN's deal included the option of pay-per-view fight against undefeated welterweight champion Errol Spence. Tom Brown, whose company is TGB Promotions, represents Spence and Jamal Charlo. Informed boxing scene, the PBC offered 45 million to guarantee to fight Jamal Charlo, and Saturday night it would have been Conquered Charlo 55 million guaranteed to fight either Spence at a catchweight at 164 and David Benavidez at 168. Wow, Errol Spence was willing to go up to 2 weight classes, more than 2 weight classes, go up 17 pounds? 17 pounds to fight Canelo Alvarez. I didn't know that. That's news to the ear, That would have been a wicked fight. Wicked fight in terms of like both big names. That would have done over 1 million pay-per-view buys most likely. I'm surprised that at the time didn't get mentioned, but apparently Spence was willing to move up and fight Canelo Alvarez. That is shocking. You know what? I'm pretty sure my good friend Steven, when he listens to this, isn't going to be too happy because Steven's not a fan of guys jumping up too many weight classes to fight somebody. He thinks it's not competitive and it's effectively dangerous as well. But Spence has expressed an interest in fighting Saul Canelo Alvarez in the past. Is that fight likely for the future? I think so. I think so. Spence a big dude, man. Spence a big dude, but I don't think he's big for 164. I don't think he's a 168 pounder. I think it would be a very crazy move for him to move up to those kind of weight classes and challenge someone like Canelo. I think it could be devastating, and it can be career damaging type of injuries that I suffer. But from the comments of Tom Brown, it looks like PBC are a bit peed off with Canelo not taking their offer. He's basically having a backhanded compliment at Eddie Reynoso. He's basically saying, you've got props to Eddie Reynoso, manager of the year, for getting Canelo huge paydays for least risk. So basically he's saying that he's fighting guys that are not credible, which is absolute rubbish because, there's no way you can tell me Bivol, especially, okay, Golovkin I can understand, but Bivol is definitely credible. Bivol is much tougher than any of those fights. Are you telling me Spence is more of a tougher fight, or Charlo's a more tougher fight, or Benavidez is a more tougher fight than Bivol? No, absolutely not. However, I will say this, that the Spence and Canelo fight would be absolute massive, because I would agree with this, like, Golovkin, and as big a fight as Golovkin is, there's no way, like a Spence Canelo fight, an African American fighter against a Mexican fighter. Obviously Canelo's a superstar, but Errol Spence is a big name now in boxing as well. Errol Spence has got himself out there. As he said, he's legitimately doing good numbers on the gate, or he's making good money, or there's good money being made on the gate, and he's doing some decent, not good pay-per-view numbers. Like, his last pay-per-view, last fight wasn't great, but against Canelo, I am 100% that would be over 1 million pay-per-view buys. That would be the biggest fight in boxing. I remember a couple of years ago, Mayweather said that the biggest fight in boxing will be Errol Spence v Canelo Alvarez. But Canelo Alvarez has moved up so many weight classes, and he's kind of blowing everybody away. It was almost as if like that fight now is not realistic. But it goes here that Spence was willing to move up to fight him at 164, which in the future, is that a possible fight? Canelo has also spoken about that fight. Canelo has also said that I would be willing to fight Errol Spence. He's openly expressed the interest. Spence is a big guy. Like, Spence is a big guy. Whether he'd be a big enough for 164, I don't know. I don't think it's wise for a fighter to be moving up 17 pounds to fight someone like Canelo as well. You're not just moving up to fight anybody. You're moving up to fight one of the best. I personally, I would be a little bit against that. Spence has had a lot, accidents in his career. He's had a lot of tough moments. You wouldn't want something disastrous to happen. Errol Spence, a great fighter, one of my favorite fighters. I just think that, I feel he should fight Crawford. I think that's the fight out there for him. Crawford is the fight that everybody and all the boxing world wants to see. I don't think Canelo Alvarez at this particular point, if he fights Crawford, beats Crawford. You see, the problem is with Errol Spence, it's a bit like the Khan Brooks situation, where although it's much different because Khan was a lot more accomplished than Kell Brook, Errol Spence isn't a lot more accomplished than Terence Crawford. The thing about this fight is that Errol Spence, if he knows he's got a chance of fighting Canelo Alvarez, he knows by losing to Terence Crawford, that fight's dead. He's not going to get a Canelo fight in the future if he loses to Terence Crawford. It's just completely dead. There'll be no demand for it. So Errol Spence, if he potentially sees an opportunity to fight Canelo Alvarez, he's going to jump at that opportunity. The funny thing is that Errol Spence hasn't mentioned anything about this opportunity. And at the time when this was probably offered, the Charlo and Benavidez, when we were hearing the rumors about Charlo and Benavidez, nobody said anything about Spence. So I don't know whether Tom Brown has just added this on. We know about Charlo and Benavidez, but we didn't know about Spence. The fact that he was offered $55 million to fight Errol Spence, that would have been a humongous fight. Now, these aren't harder fights than Bivol, because as good as Spence is a better fighter than Bivol in terms of pound for pound. I have to say Spence is better than Bivol. You know, Spence is a really, really well fundamentally sound fighter. That's got a very good resume as well. Let's put that out there. You know, Errol Spence has beat Danny Garcia, Mikey Garcia. He's beat Ugas. He's beat Sean Porter, Kell Brook. You know, this guy's got a solid resume now. And he's looking to fight Terence Crawford. So Errol Spence definitely is pound for pound a much better fighter than Dmitry Bivol. However, that's at welterweight. This is 164 is almost you're now going over middleweight. So you know, just because you're a good fighter at welterweight doesn't mean you're going to be a good fighter for someone like Canelo at 164. So Bivol is, in terms of, you know, they don't fight on pound for pound. They're fighting in the ring, and Errol Spence is much smaller than Dmitry Bivol. And Errol Spence also has a style which is he's flat-footed himself, and he likes to come forward and he likes to be the bully in the ring. Look at what he did to Ugas. He absolutely battered Ugas. He bullied him. But is he going to be able to bully Canelo Alvarez? No. So you can only really see that fight, him getting battered in that fight, because the thing is with Canelo's pretty fast of hands as well. So if Errol Spence gets on the inside, Errol Spence is normally the bigger, stronger guy. He's not going to be able to bully Canelo. Canelo's very strong and he hits very, very hard. And we saw times when Ugas landed on Spence. I felt like Ugas, you know, I wouldn't say wobbled Spence, but I definitely felt like Spence felt the shots. Now imagine if Canelo landed those uppercuts or the right hands on his chin. How would he react, you know? So yeah, I don't think that's a sensible fight for Mr. Errol Spence. I think Errol Spence needs to look at cleaning out his division and fighting Terence Crawford and giving us the fans what they want to see. But yeah, this is startling news because let's be honest, it's news that none of us probably expected. But in boxing, you know, expect the unexpected. We've seen fights. Remember, Khan fought Canelo, which was very unexpected. So I've always said if Khan can fight Canelo, then why can't guys like Errol Spence, who's a natural 147, fight someone like Canelo at 160, 164? Why? I actually think I would give Spence a lot of credit, and I actually think if Canelo, I think if this was offered to Canelo, I don't think Canelo would turn down the opportunity. Personally, I think Canelo's got a good relationship with Hearn, but I don't think he'd turn down the Spence fight. Or maybe he feels that 55 million for a Spence fight is less. Maybe he feels he could be offered more money for that. Maybe he feels that fight's even bigger than what they were offering. And maybe he wanted them to come back with a proper offer. You know, who knows? 55 million is a lot of money, but for a Spence fight, you'd have to think that maybe that fight's worth more. You know, because if Benavidez is 55 million, Benavidez has the Mexican-American kind of, Mexican kind of two Mexicans fighting. So that fight could be huge. But the Spence fight, an African-American fighter fighting a Mexican fighter, they make for big fights. They make for huge pay-per-views. And Canelo Alvarez is a massive name. Errol Spence is also building a huge name. So personally, I think that would be a humongous fight. I don't think it's a sensible fight for Errol Spence, though. I think it's a great fight for Canelo. If you're Canelo's people and you're Canelo, you take it in a heartbeat. But if you're Spence, I think you need to be wise about taking something like this because it's dangerous. You know, the guy's much bigger than you, he's much stronger than you. It's a very, very dangerous fight. It's a fight that, you know, Errol might not need at this point. I think Errol Spence needs to fight Terence Crawford. But again, I can understand that it'll be huge money for Errol Spence as well. So it'll be life-changing money. Not to say that Errol's already probably made good money in his career, but this would be life-changing, you know. So I can understand why he would entertain the thought of fighting Errol Spence, fighting Canelo Alvarez. I just think that it would be ludicrous at this point in his career, especially what he's come back from. You know, Errol Spence isn't the most active fighter as well. I don't think this is a smart matchup if you're Errol Spence. But then again, you never know in boxing. You never know. Boxing is full of surprises. And Errol Spence is a quality fighter, so you know it'll be a good matchup. It'll be a good scrap. But leave your thoughts, guys. Let me know what you think in the comment section below about this matchup. I'd love to know your thoughts, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.